Assalamualaikum and good day. Thank you for joining these presentations at the 8th Kuala Lumpur International Conference on Education, Economics and Technology 2026. My name is Khairul Hafezad Abdullah from Universiti Utara, Malaysia, and this paper is co-authored with Dr. Intan Suraya Nur Al-Zahad. In this presentation, I will share findings from a narrative review that examines how safety practices in academic laboratories are shaped by organizational learning, behavioral dynamics, and governance mechanisms. I will begin by outlining the background and motivations for this review, followed by the aim and review approach. I will then present the key thematic findings across three domains: organizational learning, behavioral and psychological mechanisms, and governance systems. Finally, I will discuss the implications for research and practice before concluding the presentation. Laboratories are central to teaching, research, and innovations in higher education. They are spaces where students translate theory into practice and develop professional competencies. At the same time, academic laboratories expose students, researchers, and technical staff to a wide range of hazards, including chemical, biological, physical, and mechanical risks. High-profile university laboratory accidents worldwide have shown that failures in safety management can lead not only to injury and loss of life, but also to reputational damage and institutional accountability challenges. Traditionally, laboratory safety in universities has been approached through compliance-based frameworks that emphasize rules, procedures, and individual responsibility. While these remain important, the literature increasingly shows that compliance alone is insufficient in complex academic environments. Universities differ from industrial settings. They are decentralized, characterized by frequent student turnover, diverse hazard profiles, and competing priorities related to teaching and research output. Uh, As a result, laboratory safety cannot be understood as a purely technical issues. Recent research reframes laboratory safety culture as a dynamic system rather than a static set of rules. This perspective highlights how learning processes, behavioral dynamics, and governance structures interact to shape everyday laboratory practice. Despite growing interest, the literature remains fragmented across disciplines. This review responds to that gap by synthesizing how safety is learned, enacted, and governed in academic laboratories. The aim of this narrative review is to critically synthesize research on laboratory safety in academic settings, focusing on three interrelated dimensions. First, organizational learning and safety culture. Second, behavioral psychosocial mechanisms shaping laboratory practice. And the last one, governance and implementations mechanisms that sustain or constrain safety. A narrative review design was adopted because the topic spans diverse disciplines, including occupational safety, education, psychology, and risk governance. The review was guided by three research questions. The first question is, how do universities learn from laboratory incidents? Second, what behavioral and psychosocial factors contribute to unsafe practices? And the third one, what governance approaches are used to manage laboratory risks? This review drew on publication in Scopus and Web of Science. After screening, duplicate removal, and language filtering, 29 peer-reviewed papers published between 2009 and 2025 were included. An interpretive thematic synthesis was conducted, allowing teams to emerge inductively rather than imposing a predefined framework. The first themes highlight organizational learning as a central pillar of laboratory safety culture. These slides provide the organizational learning mechanisms, core insight of the literature, typical breakdown observed, and key sources. Across studies, safety culture is framed not as rules on paper, but as a learning system shaped by reporting, investigation, and feedback. Four mechanisms dominate the literature. The first one, incident reporting, use of incident data, investigation practices, and the last one, feedback loops. All right, this slide highlights three additional insights on organizational learning in academic laboratories. First, technology-enabled feedback can support faster detections and corrective actions. Nevertheless, the literature is clear that technology cannot replace leadership commitment, trust, and shared responsibility. The second one, existing research relies on a mix of quantitative, qualitative, and review-based methods. While informative, these approaches are often weakly integrated, leaving cultural and behavioral dynamics under explored. Finally, a key research gap remains. Long-term organizational learning outcomes are rarely evaluated, and changes in policy or training do not always translate into sustained safety culture improvement. Overall, organizational learning remains incomplete without strong leadership, integrated methods, and long-term evaluation. The second theme focuses on behavior. This slide highlights how everyday laboratory behavior is shaped by psychosocial mechanisms. Risk perceptions becomes uneven through repeated exposure, allowing shortcut to feel normal. Over time, small deviations are accepted, creating hidden vulnerability. And importantly, knowing the risk does not guarantee safe behavior. A clear knowledge action gap exists, driven by motivations, opportunity, and social context. These findings show that laboratory safety is socially shaped and awareness alone is not enough. Importantly, knowledge does not automatically translate into safe behavior. This knowledge action gap is mediated by motivation, competing priorities, and social context. Studies show that motivation is flexible and can be strengthened through collective responsibility, peer engagement, and supportive supervision, rather than rule enforcement alone. The third theme examines governance. This slide focuses on governance and implementation. The literature shows that universities often have safety policies, but struggle to enact them consistently due to decentralized authority and unclear accountability. Major accidents can trigger rapid reform, yet crisis-driven governance is rarely sustained. Importantly, laboratory safety governance extends beyond compliance to broader risk responsibility, where fragmented accountability weakens enforcement and trust. Tools such as checklists, risk assessments, and digital monitoring system provide structure and transparency. However, the literature cautions that tools can become bureaucratic rituals if disconnect from leadership engagement and learning processes. Technology enhances detections, but it cannot substitute for ethical governance, shared responsibility, and a strong safety climate. Now, we are going to talk on discussions related to safety as an interconnected system. This discussion reframe laboratory safety as an interconnected system rather than isolated failures. Across the literature, accident and near misses signal interactions between organizational learning, psychosocial dynamics, and governance, not simple individual non-compliance. Learning mechanisms are central. Safety improves when reporting is treated as a learning resource. Investigations adopt systems and human factors perspective, and feedback loops are active. When this weaken, learning fragments. The key implication is clear. Organizational learning is not automatic after incidents. It is socially and institutionally mediated and must be deliberately supported. This slide integrates behavior, motivations, and governance. First, the literature shows clear limits to the knowledge deficit model. Hazard awareness alone does not ensure safe practice, as risk perception is shaped by habituations and normalized deviation, even among trained individuals. Second, motivation acts as the bridge between knowledge and action. Safety behavior reflects not only competence, but time pressure, assessment demands, and perceived relevance. Collective and peer-based interventions therefore show stronger effects. Finally, governance provides the enabling condition. Policies and technologies matter, but only when supported by leadership commitment, clear accountability, and a credible safety climate. This slide highlights the practical implications for universities. First, alignment matters more than accumulation. Adding rules or tools in isolation rarely produces real change. Second, institutions should strengthen the learning system by prioritizing robust reporting, system-oriented investigations, and credible feedback at laboratory level. Finally, leadership and social signals are decisive. Leadership engagement, peer modeling, and transparent feedback are as influential as technical controls. This slide outlines implications for future research. First, studies need to move beyond short-term evidence by using longitudinal designs to examine whether learning interventions create sustained safety culture change. Second, future work should integrate fragmented perspective by linking safety climate, motivation, peer norms, organizational learning, and governance within unified frameworks. Finally, researchers should critically examine digitalizations not only in terms of technical performance, but also ethics, trust, user acceptance, and integrations into accountability systems. In conclusion, this narrative review demonstrates that laboratory safety in academic setting is shaped by the interactions of organizational learning, behavioral dynamics, and governance systems. These findings matter because academic laboratories are formative environments. How safety is practiced here shape not only immediate risk outcomes, but also the professional values carried forward by future researchers and also practitioners. Thank you for your attention. This review reminds us that laboratory safety is not separate from academic work. It is what makes discovery possible. How we design reporting systems, respond to incidents, model behavior, and govern laboratory shapes not only immediate risk outcome, but also the professional values carried forward by future scientists and practitioners. I hope this synthesis contribute to deeper reflections on safety has shared learning-oriented responsibility within higher education. Thank you so much.